I don't know. I don't want to turn anybody into Jeff Bezos. But you might want to back off the sugar if you're on SNAP. That's the word we're getting. No sugary treats if you're on SNAP. And I'm torn. If you are somebody who, have got kids and you're struggling, you're not living off the government, you're struggling. I mean, it would be nice to have something, an Oreo to be able to have for dessert or something. But the argument is, and I agree with, this is not good for you. We're going to cause more problems if we're giving these really high sugary, high fructose corn syrup stuff to the people who can't necessarily afford the medical care and the medical treatment and take care of yourself. That's just adding stupidity on stupidity. But Stu and I are big fans of Benjamin Franklin and how he looked at poverty.
Yeah, here it is. I am for doing good for the poor, but I think the best way of doing good to the poor is not making them easy in poverty, but by leading or driving them out of it. I observed that the more public provisions were made for the poor, the less they provided for themselves and, of course, became poorer. And on the contrary, the less that was done for them, the more they did for themselves and became richer. I am a big believer in that philosophy.
Me too.
And that's a big... I'm kind of like this with almost all government programs. They should not give you some utopian life. They should be something that you hate. You should despise the fact you have to stay on these programs, and you should always desire to get off of them as soon as possible. And this goes when it comes to the SNAP benefits discussion. It's not for me at least, it's not really about whether it's healthy or not. I mean, I have a big place in my heart for your argument on that it's going to lead to a bunch of health expenses later on in life. And I think that's a real consideration. But it's not really that for me as much as it's like, it shouldn't be things that are like luxury items. You should never get a luxury item from the government. And Oreos, as much as I love them, and they feel like it's part of just my day-to-day necessity to live.
It's the left-hand side of my food pyramid.
Right, yes. I mean,
all the way to the top, to the bottom. It's the left-hand side of that pyramid.
Some would say maybe not the best decision, but I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
That should not mean that the government provides those things for you. I'd rather go back to government cheese. They're delivering government cheese, government milk. They produce it. It sucks. You hate it. And you never want to eat it. That's what I want. Do I want, if you're going to have a program like this, the idea is to not make it a lifestyle. It might be something to get people through a really difficult situation.
Yes.
By the way, that is temporary. It's supposed to be temporary. A temporary situation where you're struggling and you help ends meet. But that means you're alive. That doesn't mean you're having the latest Mountain Dew flavor. That's not what the number one thing purchased with SNAP benefits is soda. And I am the biggest soda advocate you will ever find.
Oh, yeah.
I constantly
You're 98% soda.
Yes. I am, if anything, there was this story about conservative influencers perhaps getting payments to post on behalf of Big Soda, which was really frustrating and awful because I didn't get an offer. I should be the number one guy they go to.
I'm a little upset about that, too.
Yeah, where's my Big Soda cash?
Right.
I want it. You can pay me directly in aspartame. I'm fine with it. Deliver bags of aspartame to my front door.
Honey, why is there a truckload of aspartame?
Hold on, I need to post on X. So I from that perspective, I think there's a big hole here for considering what we do with these programs and how we consider the relationship with the government and people who are on them. People who are on these programs should desire to get off of them. We shouldn't be they used to have food stamps and then they made the cards, and one of the talks about that, it's kind of embarrassing for these people who go and use them. And look, I'm not looking to, shame people. You shouldn't have shame for going through a tough period, but it also shouldn't be something where you're like, this is great. Hold on, let me pay for all the food I have so then I can use the extra money for liquor, or I can use the extra money for an iPhone or whatever else. These should be desperation programs. The government, if it's going to provide these services at all, should be providing them to people who are desperately in need to get over a hump that is temporary. That should be the design of these programs.
So do you know the history of that phrase from Benjamin Franklin? Do you know what that's about?
I think so. He was in Europe, right?
He was in England.
He did travel.
He was traveling in England, and somebody said, you hate the poor because you don't. And he's like, no, I don't. I'm watching what you're doing, and everything that you're doing is making the situation worse for them. They get poorer and poorer and more reliant on you. We found, the churches should do it.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't just give it out like, we should make people uncomfortable in their poverty so they want to get out. There, if you read Noah Harari, is that his name? Harari. Anyway, that guy.
Geraldo.
Yeah,
yes,
you read
Geraldo's book. Yeah.
You read Harari's book, and he talks about what are we going to do to this useless population. Well, there's your first problem.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're looking at people as useless, then you do have to do something with them. But who's making them useless? Our school system is making them useless. They cannot read. They can't reason. They can't think. They can't do mathematics. And then on top of it, the elites are controlling all of our tech, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. I mean, Stu, tell the story about homework last night with your son.
Oh, yeah. So we had baseball, by the way. Zach 2 for 2 with a triple. And so we get back from the game, and it's late. And he has been, from the moment we left school, it was baseball all the way, and it's like 9:15, 9:30 when he's done with the shower. He's beat. He's when you have to run for a triple at that speed, that'll do you. So he has to do homework, and he's got math homework, and he's in some advanced math class where he's now looking at, he's to the level now in 7th grade where he's beyond what I can actually remember and do easily. He's like, oh, can you help me with this? And I'm looking at him.
I remember that hit me with my kids when they were in 1st grade. But anyway, go ahead.
And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, it's some advanced graphing formula, and I'm like, I sort of remember seeing something like this 30 years ago, right? Like it's beyond my level. Right. And so when these things happen, I've been using like ChatGPT or Grok or whatever to kind of reteach it to me in a brief lesson so I can kind of talk him through it. Because and it's really helpful like that. And you can...
Don't let your kids do it.
Don't let your kids get access to it.
Right.
Because...
It'll do all their work.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I usually do is I'll be like, hey, help me understand this and explain it to a 7th grader. And it gives you a little outline of okay, here's how the formula, this is how this works, and then it kind of comes back to you. It's like a language maybe you learned a long time ago, and when you get kind of a couple of words, it starts piecing back together in your mind. So it's been really helpful. But last night, I'm tired, he's tired, it's late, and I'm like, I just even after I did that exercise, could not really remember how to do whatever he was attempting, and so I was like, well, let me just try to type it out and have it graph the thing for me. Maybe it'll set me up. I do that. I type in the question that he's got on his paper. It does the whole work and graphs it out for me. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But still, I'm at the point my brain is not working. I cannot get there. Then I wind up taking a picture of his actual question, just a picture of it, input it into the AI, and it reads the question. It then explains it to a 7th grader step by step, and then answers it at the bottom. And so I have him. I'm like, you read this because I'm legitimately not getting it. And I read this. He reads the step by step. How to understand what's going on, what each thing means. And he's like, oh yeah. This is easy. Before he gets to the answer. And
you gave him the answer?
I didn't give him the answer. It was at the bottom. So I made sure he didn't get to that part of the thing.
Right.
I think you could
just know it's my son. He's never going to read all the way to the end.
Right. No, I think what you want to do, correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn, because you're the AI expert around here, but what I should have done is say, don't give the answer at the end. And then no matter what.
Well, you could have just cut it off for you, so you had it and you could check his work.
That is what wound up happening.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating. And then I started thinking, I am super restrictive on phones. My kid doesn't have one. I don't let them. Every single thing is locked down. They can't even log into their devices without coming to me and making me type in or give my fingerprint for them to get in. I'm like obsessive about this. I've read Jonathan Haidt's book.
But that is terrifying, by the way.
It is a terrifying book. And if you have kids, the anxious generation, read it hopefully before they turn to the age where you might be considering giving them a phone.
I wish I would have read that. I wish it would have been printed before I did. Because I gave my kids phone when they got into high school because the school said they have to have one.
And that's late. You already did a great job.
No. It's
so hard.
I don't know. I'm sure every parent feels like this, but you just feel like a failure now. Because everything is so overwhelming and you've never dealt with any of this stuff. It's not like our parents. I mean, kids hadn't changed that much. Life hadn't changed that much from the 60s, to the 80s. Oh, it's totally different now.
Yeah. And
you just feel like a bad parent at times.
And we were at dinner with some of his friends after baseball, and they're 5 kids at the table. 4 of them are on phones at the table. My son's the only one without one. I'm sure this is going to lead to all positive things in the future.
No, it will.
I do believe it will for him. It's going to have some tough times. My point there, though, is that I'm obsessive about this. I lock all that stuff down as much as I possibly can. It's still difficult. Most of the parents I know are like, they're going to get it anyway. I can't sit here and obsess about freaking screen time all day. So, they're good kids. Look, I don't know. Was I a good kid? I don't know. But I will tell you, if I had access to that, I would be taking a photo of every single one of my questions and having a chat GPT or whatever answer them, filling it all in and getting on with my life when I wanted to play video games. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing this now. There was an instructor who teaches a college course, been teaching it for years and years and years and years, said, all of my students seem brilliant all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because none of them come for help after school and office hours. None of them ever ask any questions in class. They all get incredible grades, and until we have an in-room exam. And then they all do worse than everybody else from the previous years. And he's like, what's happening is that ChatGPT is, I think it's a coding thing. ChatGPT is doing all the coding for them, or AI or Grok or Gemini or whatever, and they're not learning it. They don't have any of the process. They don't know how to answer the questions. They don't know how to think through the problems.
So,
what does that lead to?
Do you remember when I had Ray Kurzweil on in maybe 2008, 2009?
Yeah.
And he said that this was coming. And I said, Ray, that's going to make us incredibly lazy. And he's like, no, it'll give you time to think about other things. And I thought, okay, you don't know who humans are. I use it that way. I know people that do use it that way. It is enhanced what they do, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can create so much more. Most people are not like that. That's the spirit of the entrepreneur that is like that. That's the discoverer in some people. Most people are like, I just want to get by. I just want to get by, and then I just want to do my thing, for a few hours every day and just be left alone. Those are the ones that are going to be left way behind because they'll use it to complete their work and not to help them learn or think.